yeah, the WRX is officially ready. All right, so it is another beautiful day, and by beautiful I mean heat index of, let's see, 97, hooray, or rather that's the feels like temperature. Today, so we are officially getting ready. As of last week, we managed to finally secure a ticket for Midwest Fest. It was a little bit up in the air there for a little bit, but like I said, we managed to get a ticket, and I got way too pessimistic about things, so I kind of stopped preparing. So we've got two and a little. Well, less than 2 weeks now. Less than 2 weeks. A little bit more than 2 weeks. I'm doing the stuff in my head. Yeah, less than 2 weeks to get the car ready. So the good news is that as of today, I apologize. I am on my phone. Don't know. So this time I actually intended to use the correct GoPro for everything, but I don't know where I put it. I'm still getting the garage back in order, but that's the nice thing actually is that's the wrong. There we go. The garage is actually in order for the first time in forever. It's been a mess since March. Oh yeah. Anywho, I don't even know why I just flipped the camera back over. Hold on. All right. If you'll see, there are two sets of tires. I'd close the garage door so it would focus better, but I don't want to die. So that being said, you've got the original set that we ran at Alpine. If any of you guys are thinking, but wait, these are the Enkis. You didn't run those. Yeah, so that's because I decided to be a little excessive. I actually took the tires off of my Apexes, so now the Apexes are running some brand new, fresh, literally squeaky fresh Falcons. Because I wanted to, basically, these are my banker lap tires. So, the offset gives me a wider track width, and just everything about this setup is sort of the best that I could do in order to make sure that wheels and tires weren't my problem. So those are going to be used on day 2 or day 3, depending on how well I'm doing. Since I haven't been, flip that over. Since I haven't been to Gingerman before, luckily I did actually find an Assetto Corsa mod. I've got to try and install that later this evening and see if it actually works. If it does, I'm going to start turning some digital laps of that in the sim rig just so I can at least have the course layout memorized. But there's obviously, Gingerman is like the home track of Gridlife, and so there's lots of people who have lots more experience, so my chances are kind of slim. And then also, unfortunately, some of the plans that I had in mind for the car are not going to work out time-wise in order to actually get this car where I want it to be competitive in Club TR. So I'm just going to try my best. I'm going to see if I can do a low 140. That's what we're going to shoot for, and that's what those guys are for. But obviously, like I said, the old tires, I'm going to flip back. But those guys are going to be what I do the first session with while I'm actually relearning my braking zones, learning in the first place. Learning my braking zones, learning how hard I can turn, learning when to turn in, etc., etc. So, like I said, I've got a fresh set of tires specifically to make sure that once I know the track, I'm not dealing with, tires that have already been heat cycled a bunch of times. The Falcons are notoriously pretty good about, a lot of guys get multiple events out of a single set of tires, especially people who are faster than me. But, like I said, I'm just doing everything I can. Since I have some money to throw at my problems, I'm throwing some money at the problems, which actually I should go into the house and grab them. We're running real brake pads, specifically Carbotech XP10s. This is not a recommendation or anything. I haven't run them yet, and this compound may be too much. I took an educated guess based upon what other people have recommended to me and what I researched on their own sites. I don't think I'm hitting the crazy high temperatures that you need for some of their more aggressive pads, but basically I am moving away from the brake motive pads and rotors because basically, long story short is, after sitting and reviewing my lap footage from Alpine, I actually noticed that I was kind of having a bit of a drop-off. And I mentioned before about how we were kind of having some minor braking issues, not problem stopping, but it just felt like it wasn't as bitey as it was at the start. And basically, long story short is I was experiencing brake fade. I thought that I wasn't, but because of the fact that it's kind of a new thing to me, because honestly, before, like, when I went to Alpine last year, cool, I tapped the button by accident. Anyway, at Alpine, I genuinely found time the whole weekend. So brakes weren't what was stopping me. But I did notice there was like a weird steep drop off when I was running this year. And then I had an autocross where I had a similar issue where it was like I was consistently way further behind my competition than I usually was. And so I kind of put two and two together, and I realized that it was like, obviously, it wasn't tires at Alpine. At the autocross, it was tires too. But I realized that the brake bite wasn't quite there that there used to be. And so, long story short is put two and two together, and I realized that I was experiencing brake fade, which is a notorious issue. The S2000 has terrible brake cooling from the factory. So basically, long story short is I was just overcooking the brakes at Alpine, and likewise, anytime I drive in any of this stupid weather that we have anywhere in the United States right now, except for the places that have beautiful weather. Yeah, so long story short is I'm going to be running those Carbotech pads. I'm still going to be running the brake motive rotors, which, by the way, I actually found out it's actually the eBay store name for Power Stop. So I've been running Power Stop's like street pads as well as their rotors forever. The rotors are great. I've had zero issues. They don't crack. Well, I mean, I'm sure they crack eventually, but I haven't had cracking issues or anything like that. So I am going to keep running their rotors, but I'm going to go ahead and try the Carbotech pads. So it's like between pads and, fresh tires, the fact that I have access to fresh tires, I'm going to have very few excuses to make other than the fact that right now the car does have it does get light in the, it gets light in the corners a lot in the rear end. There we go, that's what I was looking for. The rear end gets light, which that's why I'm working with some people to try and come up with an aero solution for this car, but I don't think that's going to work out time-wise, but we'll see. But long story short is that I'm looking to get more aero for this car, especially rear aero. At least I think that's the problem. We're still figuring stuff out because, it's not 100%, but it's very likely. So that being said, at least I've got tires and brakes going for me, which I think should be good enough to get me into the low 140s. And then anything beyond that, we're going to have to see. So in the meantime, yeah, that's it for this project. So basically, aside from that, if you guys saw just a minute ago, this is the new project. In-laws gave me this generator that doesn't start. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to try and get it to start so we can have that with us because we are actually going to be camping at the Midwest Fest this year. So, yeah, having power will be nice. So, anywho, I'm going to get to that. Alright, so after a bunch of breaks and a bunch of other stuff because I had to take care of life things, I got this thing to cough up. Didn't quite get, like, it ran for like a half of a second. Like, it did a blub, 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 and then died out. And so, I think what the issue was that, do I still have it in my pocket? I guess I do. Yeah, so the spark plug that it was in there was this Champion spark plug. I don't know if that matters or not, because I don't know anything about, like, lawnmowers and generators and just anything running Briggs & Stratton. But, I went ahead and actually bought, I threw away the box already. Oh, no, it's right here. Yeah, so I went ahead and actually bought the Briggs & Stratton spark plug specifically, swapped that out, and then the other issue that I ran into, which isn't quite fixed, is that, this little guy has this gasket, and this gasket is supposed to be shaped kind of, you can't really tell because it's on there, but you can see how it's kind of frayed along the edges there, so there's a whole nother section to this gasket that broke off. So, it was like that when I got it, like, literally, when I was fiddling with it, it started leaking, and then when I, like, touched it, then this popped out. So I think that my issue is fuel pressure related, now, because, like I said, I got the spark plug changed out, so that worked. So chances are that was the initial problem. So now I just need to actually get something. I tried to see if they had anything in stock at the hardware store. They don't, so I'm going to have to try some other places tomorrow. But basically, I just need to go ahead and find a gasket, hopefully get that hooked up, get my actual fuel line hooked back up to this tank on top, and yeah, hopefully after that it'll start up. So, it wasn't really that complicated. It was really simple. Hopefully. We'll see. The other thing, too, is I played around. I'm going to have to do some research, because I didn't do a lot of research. Um, Sorry if I repeated myself. My old phone had a problem switching over, so the audio would always cut out. I'll have to see if this phone does it too. I also don't know what this is. Like, for those of you guys who are like, oh, that's the throttle. No, because the choke is here, which is for anything that is like a single speed motor, the choke is your throttle. Like, you've got, I can even show you because the fuel filter fell out again, and I don't know where it fell out. Oh, it's on the floor. Right, it fell over there. You can just barely see, it's a little too dark, but you can kind of see, yeah, you can see that little flappy do. Yeah, that's your throttle body. So this goes somewhere, I'm sorry the lighting is so terrible, but you can see this mechanism and it all pivots back there. So I don't really know what that is. So I'm going to find out, because the other thing too is when I got it, that was when I was playing with that actually, because this was stuck. Like you pulled it and it would stick open. So I pulled it and then I pulled the starter and then it would and then the thing closed. So, and now it moves freely. So that was another thing that was wrong with this whole setup. So like I said, I've got a lot to learn about generators and hopefully we'll figure it out pretty soon. So in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to doing things that matter with the car. Starting with doing a better, because my actual planted seat base came in. So I'm going to go ahead and probably I'm going to find my actual cameras so I can actually set up time-lapsey stuff and try and do this properly. And yeah, I'm going to go ahead and redo my seating, and as well as a bunch of other things on my checklist. Alright, so we're back at it again, another day. So I got the part. I was a dummy and didn't film before so I could show you, but you can see, like, this is the rubber gasket, and it's supposed to have a whole tube that goes, like, all the way up to here, and that's what broke off originally. So, got this new gasket, and I also, this is the old valve. I got a new valve in the kit that came with that gasket, so I was like, why not replace the valve, too? Who knows how old and gross this is? I'm sorry, I'm holding at it in my face weird. Anywho, so, yeah, that thing. So, that being said, I put it back together once, and it wouldn't start, so I went through all of the things you usually do when you're troubleshooting why an engine won't start. It's either fuel, air, or spark. Like I mentioned before, I already shocked the F out of myself because I didn't realize I was still touching a part of the plug and the engine at the same time. So when I went to go start it, it zapped me. That was nice. So I know it sparks. I knew that the fuel that was in it, turns out. So actually, I'll get back to that. So let's go back to. So and then I knew it was obviously getting air because I took the filter off. So I had full access to air. Played with all the throttle and choke stuff. And really, what it comes down to is honestly, this engine was just kind of gummed up. Because if you remember, I was talking about or maybe I didn't talk about it, I don't remember yesterday. The throttle went the actual or the emergency throttle for if the engine started to over rev. So there's actually basically if the engine goes over a certain RPM, it'll actually close its own throttle. So there's a throttle and then there's the choke, which, like I said, on these simple motors, the choke is usually your throttle, but it has a secondary throttle. When I pulled it, it would stick wherever I put it. After playing with that a little bit and getting it cleaned up, it actually wiggled back and forth like it was supposed to. Then, similar deal with, I cleaned off. So, alright, the long story short is that I decided to go ahead and take it all apart and clean the carb. I found a bunch of, I wish I had taken pictures of it, I found a bunch of particulate matter in the little carb cup. So hold on, it's called a bowl. So this is the bowl. There was stuff in there. This little this little screw that actually lets fuel flow into the bulb. This was covered in stuff and was clogged. So took good old brake cleaner, pressed the hose up against that little hole, and sprayed it until brake cleaner came back out freely. And then lastly, this little plungery guy here, I didn't realize, so I put it back together once and it wouldn't start. I was like, oh, boo. And I realized that the plunger was up here and it didn't move. So it turns out this needs to go all the way down here and be able to move freely, because I don't know how well you can see it in there, but there's this little piston that moves up and down. Yeah, right in that area-ish. So, like I said, went ahead, cleaned that out, got this moving freely again. So now I'm going to put it back together and we'll see if she'll start. Oh, so getting back to it, also the gas that was in it came out, let me show you. That's not what gasoline is supposed to look like. So, yeah, came out of the generator. So I emptied out the whole tank, put in a fresh 2 gallons, so now it's got fresh gas in it. So I'm hoping that between all of those things, it should be cleaned up. And like I said, the reason why I decided to target the carb and the fuel and everything is because if I spray brake cleaner in it, it fires up for like a second and then it dies out. So I'm hoping that it was just a fuel flow issue due to a clogged up carb. So we'll find out. All right, I got it. I got it. Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let me. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna talk here in a minute. This is a little bit louder than I thought it would be. So yeah, I want to let it run so that I can get it to, because you see how it's still kind of stuttering around a little bit. I want to let it run for a little bit, let more fuel run through it, let it get kind of cleaned up and more clean running, and then I'll talk more. All right, now that it's quieted down a little bit. So yeah, I actually ended up doing a little bit more off camera. So when I got it to start, it was running, it was actually running, it was running on choke. So like when it was on choke, it was running, and whenever I put it to run, it would turn off. So I didn't quite get it running. But after that, I did a little bit of research, and I figured out that these things can actually be really stupid sensitive. I'm trying to get it into frame, but I don't think I'm going to pull that off. Alright, it's just going to be my face. So yeah, anywho, these things are really sensitive, so I went into the carb, and I actually took just this little, it's actually really funny. The thinnest thing I could in my garage was actually these little pinout keys, which these are supposed to be for disconnecting pins and stuff from wiring connectors. But anyway, this little guy it's not gonna focus on that at all. Anyway, this little guy was just thin enough to into the jet on the generator, or jet on the jet that goes on the bottom of my carb. So after doing a little bit of cleaning and stuff, now it does the opposite. It won't run on full choke, but if you crack open the throttle, it's a choke, but I'm gonna call it a throttle. If you crack open the throttle one click, boom, it starts up, stutters about for a hot minute, and then you can go to full throttle, and then boom, you've got power. So basically, I'm just gonna run one more quick little test, plug some stuff in to make sure it actually produces. Ooh, choking on myself. Make sure it actually produces power, but yeah. So like I said, it was just basically just needed to have that gasket replaced. It needed to have the right spark plug, and it needed to have all the old gas and all the old crud that was sitting in it for years and years cleaned out, and it worked. So yay, generator. All right, on to the next real project. And also, I didn't show it on camera, but I replaced an axle nut. Woo, because I reused an axle nut, and you really shouldn't do that. If you're street driving, you're fine, but for track stuff, I have had them start to come looser than I would like them to. Like, not, but like, they move. So only use them once, kids. Yeah. So anyway, got a lot more stuff coming on this week, but this was just sort of the simple starting easy things I could do in a couple of hours, which turned into 3 hours, which is still not that bad, but it's not a couple hours like I was planning.